Hello to all my fans and friends, I'm the Pyjama Critic, and though there has been no sign as yet of the current pandemic causing the dead to rise from their graves, neither the government nor the press have publicly ruled it out as a possibility, so no need to take a chance. I'll be staying here at the Slumber Lounge talking about movies. One of the most hotly debated subjects in the movie world is the merit of sequels, and while I can see the argument that a commercially successful classic is unlikely to have an equally successful sequel because you're not going to strike gold in the same place twice, I do believe that the characters and setting from any given movie can easily have another story in them. I certainly don't have any time for the sequels are just an attempt to make money brigade, because I hate to be the bearer of bad news for any of my viewers who didn't already know this, but all movies are made to make money. There may be the rare case of a trust fund millionaire documentarian willing to make an act of charity out of making his point, but generally speaking, in a capitalistic free market society, the aim of any project in any industry is profit. Still, putting that little soapbox aside, it's time for me to take a far too close look at Ghostbusters 2. Released in 1989, directed once again by Ivan Reitman and featuring almost all the cast of the first movie, reprising major roles and supporting characters alike, the film tells the story of the same group of paranormal first responders, now shunned by the city they saved, getting their chance at redemption and return to glory as they are once again called upon to stop a deadly threat, but this time the root of the problem is far closer to home. We pick up 5 years after the conclusion of the first film. We see Dana has a baby now, there are a lot of angry and obnoxious people around, even by New York standards. Dana's baby inexplicably rolls out of her reach and into danger while she tries to catch him. Now, I've never actually been to New York myself, and I know the people there have a reputation for being unhelpful, but I find it hard to believe that if a street full of people see a runaway pram, at least one person wouldn't try and help stop it. Baby's safe, time to find out what the Ghostbusters are doing now.
Hey, listen up, look who's here!
Oh, I thought it was gonna be He-Man.
You know, my dad says you guys are full of crap.
Jason,
Well, some people have trouble believing in the paranormal.
No, he just says you guys are full of crap and that's why you went out of business.
Hey, I've been a children's entertainer, that's a fairly typical reception. This leads us to some rapid-fire exposition concerning the aftermath of the first movie. Seems they did not quite get the hero's reception they had hoped, but rather...
They conjured up a 100-foot marshmallow man through the top 3 floors off an uptown high-rise, ended up getting sued by every state, county, and city agency in New York.
Yes, that. And subsequently, much of the city has forgotten who they are. Those who remember what they did hate them for it. So that's Ray and Winston. Time to catch up with Egon, who has managed to get a new research post.
What are you working on, Egon?
Trying to determine whether human emotions actually affect the physical environment. It's a theory Ray and I had when we were still Ghostbusters.
So we just have to assume that there were a few people who took their side in the fallout from Marshmallow Gate, and lucky for Egon, some of them had sway at this university. We also learn that the heroes still know each other, Dana is on good terms with them, but things didn't work out with her and Peter.
Well, we didn't part on very good terms, and then we sort of lost track of each other after I got married.
Really, I don't think anybody, when you first saw Dana with a baby, expected Peter to be involved there, but it can't hurt to have clarification. Also, take note of the experiment. That's core to this movie's main plot. Finally, Peter. We learn he is now making maximum use of a PhD in parapsychology by hosting a tacky tabloid TV show where he mocks his guests and presumably his viewers for believing in psychic predictions. This guy, who met an actual god 5 years ago, is still playing the skeptic. Have to ask what it would take for him to have an open mind.
Well, I predict that the world will end at the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve.
This year?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shouldn't you have said, hey, the world's going to end in 1992,
wait a
or
minute.
better yet,
Hey,
1994?
This is not just some money-making scheme, all right?
Also, that's going to come into play later.
The end of the world will be on February 14th in the year 2016.
Valentine's Day. Bummer.
Now, I decided to search various news archives for what was happening in February 2016, and there wasn't much of note. All the real big stuff happened later that year. Though I see from my Facebook timeline, some friends and I were discussing a trailer that had been released that week. Let's just remind myself of what it was for.
let's go.
Let's go.
Oh,
Did you want to?
Sorry,
I'll let you.
Next time. Okay.
Holy shilling! So as far as the world of Ghostbusters franchise, then she was kind of right. That was the beginning of the end. A quick reminder that the city does not hold any gratitude for their help, and we are briefly introduced to Walter Peck Mark II.
I'm Jack Hardemeyer. I'm the mayor's assistant. I know who you are, Dr. Venkman. I just don't see any ghosts anywhere.
Jack Hardemeyer, played by Kurt Fuller, the mayor's personal assistant, who, despite all he witnessed 5 years ago, still believes the Ghostbusters to have been frauds. I actually think this could have worked better if we had Walter Peck back, having somehow escaped getting fired after the last movie and weaseled his way into this position of higher power. But still, if we couldn't have that, then this substitute character works just as well. Speaking of new characters, we find out that Dana now works in art restoration and meet her new boss, Janos Pola, played by Peter McNichol. Artsy, somewhat snobbish, and going by his name and accent from some Eastern European country. We never find out exactly where. He takes on the same role as Louis Tully in the first movie. He's not a bad man, just rather lonely due to his poor social skills, and has an unrequited desire for Dana. He praises all the work, constantly tries to get close to her, cannot or will not notice that he is being brushed off, and gets jealous of any other men she knows. It is, I imagine, this pestering that causes Dana to make this major decision.
I've enjoyed working here, but now that my baby's a little older, I'm going to try to go back to the orchestra.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that you will not be here.
Getting a little older? He can't be more than a year. He's still in nappies. She's doing well to take on a job with more sociable hours, but I think she's a little optimistic if she thinks the boy can be left alone in the evenings already. I don't think he's ready to be a latchkey child just yet. The three doctors unite at Ray's bookshop, where I have to assume he employs Winston if they're not doing parties anymore. Peter finds out that they are working for Dana and invites himself to the investigation. Of course, we get the suggestion that the old flame is still there, and Peter proves surprisingly good with children.
Help! He's gone completely berserk! Help!
We also have enough of a lead to start an investigation, but remember, they don't have the backing of the city now, so it has to be done incognito, or as close to such as these men can manage. Meanwhile, Dr. Perro is working late and bears witness to the rise of the new big bad. Terrible when static from a canvas gets you like that. Meet Vigo, the spirit of a long-dead magician, played by Willem von Homburg and voiced by Max von Sydow, a once powerful tyrant who has been biding his time since his execution and now seeks to return to the mortal realm and gain power once more. Janos, due to his desperate loneliness, proves an easy target for mind control and offers to do whatever it takes to allow his new master to get back to the world, and for that, Vigo needs...
a child.
So why is this happening now? Is it related to the strange goings on outside Dana's building? Our heroes have done some digging, literally, and uncovered another piece of the puzzle.
Slime! What? It's a river of slime!
Ooze, and effects that wouldn't look out of place on an early CD-ROM game, and whoops! In the 80s, at least here in England, power cuts were not uncommon, but I should hope it was never that easy to black out an entire city. We get Janos' first attempt at getting hold of baby Oscar, but since his possessed behaviour isn't really any different to his pestering ways before, it goes unnoticed by Dana for what it is. Vigo seems to have loaned him some lovely night vision goggles. When I say Janos has taken over the role of Louis, I don't mean that character has been replaced, he just has other things to do in this movie, like being the legal counsel for the Ghostbusters. He gives a lightning quick explanation of how he's now a lawyer and is representing them at a trial over them causing the blackout before a judge who stresses that he doesn't believe in ghosts. How can anybody in this world not recognise ghosts? They are definitely a thing in this universe and their presence is very blatant, remember?
But this beats the hell out of me.
The walls in the 53rd precinct were bleeding. How do you explain that?
None so bleeding blind. In this case, we learn two important things. That the Ghostbusters are not only out of business, but legally banned from doing any ghostbusting. Also, the slime from the subway tunnel reacts to heightened emotion. This all leads to a rather delightful twist of fate, as the court is invaded by a pair of dead murderers, and if the judge wants saving, there's only one thing he can do.
You're next, Bubbles.
All right! I've seen the order! Case dismissed! Hey, we got the case! Now do something!
Do... Ray... Egon!
It's moments like this that demonstrate how Egon has lightened up a bit since the last movie. That's an indication of how far this franchise had spread by this point. This movie was a sequel not only to the original movie, but also 5 years worth of books, comics and animated series that meant these characters were really fleshed out by this point, and even kids who hadn't seen the original were familiar with them. One destructive capture later, and the Ghostbusters are literally back in business. So here comes the obligatory montage.
Ghostbusters.
Yes, we're back.
Chills down your spine. Your heart fills with fright, not filled by the things that go bump in the night. Walk through the wall.
They get their old premises and staff back, no problem, and set about cleaning up the town. Hardemire's having none of it.
Ghostbusters!
Again, thousands of people have seen spectres running through the streets. How can there be a single person in this world who doesn't believe ghosts are real? Might as well deny the existence of the moon. Which, actually, there are some people who do. So yes, this guy is the flat earther of the Busterverse. Don't forget the slime and the painting. We're brought up to speed on both of them, as Egon and Ray have discovered how to control the slime, and Dana is uncomfortably aware of the energy radiating from Vigo. Back home to feed and bathe the baby, which Dana does with great enthusiasm, showing no exhaustion at all. By the time this movie premiered, Sigourney Weaver and her husband were expecting their first and only child, so a year later she would be doing this for real. If she's as dedicated to her craft as I believe she is, she must have looked back on this and cringed when she saw her interpretation of what being a mother was going to be like compared to the real experience. She's attacked by her bathtub in a scene that makes me want to play through Seventh Guest again. You'll know what I mean if you've played it, and if you haven't then you should find the game on Play Store and then you'll get it. I can assure you it is well worth the £8 to download it onto your tab. Luckily, Peter didn't move back in with the Ghostbusters at GHQ, so Dana has somewhere to go while the others continue the investigation at her place.
So how are we going to handle the sleeping arrangements?
Well, what's best for me is if I lie on my side like this and you spoon up beside me.
Well, how about you on the sofa and me and the baby in the bed?
It's a way to go.
This bugs me. Women in movies at this time all did this when they were forced to share lodgings with a male friend. Now I get it, the guy assumes they're going to sleep together when the woman has to bluntly bring him back down to earth. That's cliche but funny. But why does she assume she's getting the bed? It's arrogant enough when they have to share a bed in a hotel room. It's never the man offering, it's always her declaring that she has the bed. But this is in his apartment. Dana is a guest. If she offered to sleep on the couch, Peter would of course have said something like, "Wouldn't hear of it, you take my bed, I'll sleep on the couch." But so don't just assume you're stealing his bed. That makes you come across as entitled. Observe the niceties. Wait for him to make the offer, safe in the knowledge that he will. More research into Vigo. Note the picture seems to have an adverse effect on Ray. Peter comes back to his new roommate.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. She cleaned.
You know, because a bachelor can't possibly take care of himself and must always live in squalor, he needs a woman to look after him. Peter's distracting Dana from recent events by taking her to dinner. Janine and Lewis are developing their romantic subplot, and also babysitting, and the others are deep underground investigating the subway tunnels.
I think that was the old New York Central, City of Albany. Derailed in 1920, killed hundreds of people. Did you catch the number on the locomotive?
Sorry, I missed it.
Apparently Egon's a train spotter now. They find the Slime River, and after a quick dip, they discover the power of the ooze.
What are you trying to do, drown me? Oh yeah, it sounded more like it was my fault. That you were too stupid not to drop that plot line.
Stupid, hey, you better watch your mouth, I'll punch your lights out. Wait! Wait! Stop! Get your clothes off! Hey,
If it's really that powerful, then shouldn't it still have an effect on them even without their clothes? Their heads and hands are still dripping with the stuff. The result is that the slime is formed of raw negative energy created by all the New Yorkers acting like New Yorkers, and it's all flowing to the art museum where the evil energy is breathing life into Vigor. Just like last time, it's time to go downtown and talk to the mayor, which of course is where the spoilers begin. Here's where I talk about the ending of this movie, so if you haven't seen it and don't want to know how it ends, then skip to this time code. For the rest of you, well, the mayor that helped them out before is still in office, but with his new assistant in his ear, he remains unconvinced of the Ghostbusters story and leaves Hardemire to take care of them, which he does in the only way government officials know how, by lying to city staff and assuming that if he ignores the threat to the city he's been told about, then it won't come.
The mayor wants them kept under strict observation for the next few days. We think they're seriously disturbed and potentially dangerous.
Well, we'll do whatever is necessary.
Thank you, Doctor.
Lord Vigo reminds his minion that he's been a little quiet on the kidnapping front lately, so Janos makes a deal with him.
If I was to bring the baby, could I have the woman?
Using a combination of mind control and ghost powers, Janos gets the baby there. Of course, Dana follows, and the museum finds a more effective way in enforcing lockdown than our authorities have managed so far. Another ghost rampage, with digital effects reminiscent of the first movie. Well, lady, if you hadn't chopped all its skin off in the first place, it wouldn't have come back to life so angry. While the animation here is smoother than that of the equivalent scene in the first movie, the blending of the two film tracks is more noticeable.
It's some dock supervisor down at Pier 34.
What's the problem?
He says the Titanic just arrived.
Well, better late than never.
Best joke in the movie, couldn't not show that. So the mayor wises up to Jack's interference, he gets his comeuppance, Ghostbusters are sprung from the asylum, and the extremely fickle population of the city are once again right behind them. However, it's going to take more than nuclear-powered beings to get through this field of negativity. They need the crowd in a good mood. They realise the best way to bring out the most positive emotions in Americans is to appeal to their sense of patriotism, and of course this city is home to a famous symbol that embodies just that.
Something good. Something decent.
Something pure.
With the aid of some positively charged slime, a good-sized PA system, and a track that I can't play because of a copyright strike, they mobilised the Great American Unifier. Their confidence is confirmed. The sight of this 40-metre copper woman walking through the streets results in cheers and excitement rather than terrified screams and running for cover.
She's tough. She's a Harvard chick. Sorry. My fault.
Oh, now you did that on purpose and you know it. Should have mentioned earlier, but this is New Year's Eve, and midnight is fast approaching. You know, in line with that psychic prediction from earlier. Lady Liberty arrives at the museum. The enthusiasm she encourages is enough to break through the slime shell. Well, that and her huge copper arm. The stage is all set for the final confrontation. Janos is neutralised with positive slime. Vigo proves less easy to stop. Now, he appears to be able to come back in his own body anyway, so not sure what he needs the baby for at this point, but he still wants him. All hope appears to be lost until...
Where's that singing coming from? People outside, huh?
Even the impending apocalypse can't get in the way of everybody singing that blessed song when New Year's Eve chimes in. The show of solidarity is enough to weaken Vigo, relax his spell on the Ghostbusters, and after one last-ditch effort where he enthralls and possesses Ray, they are able to blast him back with proton beam and good slime.
Man, let me tell you something. I love you.
Yes?
Yeah.
Well, I love you too.
All is well, the slime has left Janos and Ray rather stoned, and the Ghostbusters have somehow ended up the subject of a painting that offers a very charitable interpretation of their middle-aged figures.
Who you gonna call?
So that was Ghostbusters 2, and there's no point in claiming it lives up to the standard of the original, but if that was your benchmark, then you were always going to be disappointed. The original being such an iconic event in cinematic history, this really has to be judged as its own piece of work, certainly above average and highly memorable in its own way. There were elements that were just retreading the original, but there was enough of a new take to allow that to slide. The effects could have been better, but they were still an improvement in many ways. The jokes were better, and all the cast members do a good job of reprising their roles in slightly more developed ways that allows us to believe there has been 5 years of growth. There was this subplot involving Lewis and Slimer learning to get along, but I didn't mention it in the main body because it was so trimmed down in the edit that it really wasn't worth it. I would have liked to have seen more of that. Overall, I have the feeling that if they had gone for a third film, it would have left the fans wishing they had stopped at one, but by leaving it here, at least for 30 years, we were left with good memories of the franchise. This movie comes in at 3 slippers. Yes, that's how I'm doing ratings now, and we can only wait and see what the future holds now a new film is in the works. Thank you for watching, and remember to do your bit by bouncing on that like button, commenting and subscribing to my channel. I've been the Pyjama Critic, and remember, if public mood where you live gets so low as that people won't even lift a hand to stop a runaway pram, then do yourself a favour and get out of that city.
My guys are still under a judicial estrangement order. That blue thing I got from her. They could be exposing themselves. And you don't want us exposing ourselves.